Hey guys, Jamie here with Journey North. This week I'm working on a old vintage ice axe. Gonna put a new handle on it, and thought I'd just share a few photos from the old days before electricity. In the winter, especially if you're from the north, you'd know this. When the lakes freeze, they would get out and harvest ice. So I got a few photos I'd share with you, as well as take you along the journey of the axe. Here's the old ice axe head that I picked up. Pretty typical. There's a few different patterns. I think this is probably closest to a Chicago pattern, referred to as a duckbill, because they got the rounded corners. They came typically on a 28-inch axe handle, so if you do pick one up, standard boys axe handle will work for them. And they got the pick on one end, which really isn't a pick. It's more of a chisel point, which was made for dragging the ice blocks around. That one's got a small chip in it, which is no big deal. The bit looks really nice. A lot of the time, the entire community would get together and cut their ice and divide it up so they could get their private ice houses stocked up, pack some sawdust around, and have ice last them all the way through until the following fall. Just going to use this here to get that surface rust off, get down to the pitting and the patina. I think it's going to clean up real nice at this point. Just be careful while doing this. It's slightly dangerous. The wires on them wire wheels have a tendency to fly off, stick right in your belly, which is better than your eye, I guess. Clean this up on here, then we'll move to the disc grinder. Here's a pretty typical size block of ice. You want them as big as possible so they would hold more surface area. They would melt faster, so cut them real big, as big as you can move. Load them into your private ice stash. And then when you want a smaller piece, that's where this ice axe would come in. You would knock off a corner that you could fit into your ice box inside your home. After using the wire wheel on the bench and the angle grinder, you take a sanding block, a little WD-40, and I kind of just blend it all together. You'll get some of the wheel marks on there. And this is just a great way to bring that outside a little bit of shine with still leaving that dark pitting, which is a look I just love right here. I really recommend the wire wheel, sandpaper, Scotch-Brite pad. This system here, if you're going for that older vintage look. Once you use rust remover, vinegar, acid, you're going to lose all that look. It's going to come out a dull gray. It's really just horrible looking in my opinion. This is a lovely way to do it. Some of the other tools that would have been used to harvest ice, the ice tongs that he's using to move the blocks around. The guys in the background would be using pikes to float the ice closer to where they were loading it. Also hand saws, chisels, chainsaws, rotary saws. I usually start out on the bench grinder there with the wire wheel and get as much off I can with that. Then I switch to a cut brush on the old angle grinder. And after I get it all cleaned up, everything knocked down, put a little WD-40, and as you can see, I used a sanding block and then the 3M Scotch-Brite. And I scrub it, and that kind of blends it all together, leaves some of the darker spots, leaves all the pitting, the darkness, and the patina. Just comes out looking great like that. Compared to if you use rust remover, acid, vinegar, stuff like that, everything comes out a dull gray color, and you pretty much got to refinish it or get some kind of patina on it. But this here looks just great. I did touch up the edge. These didn't have very sharp edges. They were hitting ice, which is very hard, and you don't want it to chip in or anything like that. Very light, just cleaned it up, polished it up a little bit. That little chip in the end, these did not come to a complete point, more of a chisel style. I knocked the corner off so I didn't have to remove any more than I had to with that chip in it. But I just love the looks of that. That's how I try to get most of my stuff, with that look right there. And a little tip I do is I don't clean the inside of this eye. I do, but I don't do that right away. Get everything else done. And I'm going to just use a hammer handle for reference here. But when I slip this on, and down through and pull it back off, it's going to leave rust marks from in there, which is kind of a line you can follow on where you need to shave a little off. After I get my fit just right, and it's still just a hair tight, I'll go through with a Dremel, hand brush, something like that, and I'll get the rest of that rust out of there so nothing can flake off. But to start out with, I just love leaving that in there. Leaves some marks for you. Maybe I'll show you next in the handle process. Stay tuned. If you've never seen an ice harvest, maybe search it on YouTube. I know there's a couple videos. It's actually real fascinating to watch and see how it's done. Every once in a while, you have to get these factory handles, and they got a lacquer on them. And rather than trying to sand that off, I use scrapers, or even this knife. I have a scraper edge built onto it, and it just works really great. Leaves a lot smoother finish than sandpaper does. Even you guys that are hand making handles, carving them out, once you start using a scraper, you're probably not going to go back to sandpaper. Scraping just leaves a superb finish. I love this photo. It's got an old truck putting ice on the back, then they got a rope hooked onto the car, pulling them up onto there. Guys probably doing this on the weekend just so they could have a cold beer in July. There's one of the little rust marks I was telling you about. I should have done some photos earlier. Showed you the longer ones. But that little rust mark that you leave in the eye just shows you an exact mark where it's digging in, where you're going to have to remove a little bit of material. That's why I always suggest just don't clean that eye up right away. I mean, make sure there's no big chunks in there, but don't polish it. Just makes a nice little template so you know where to remove stuff. You could use a rasp or a spoke shave or a draw knife, even a pocket knife. I have a whole video on how you can put a handle on with just that 4-in-hand rasp. Here you can see some of the old ice saws and chisels and pikes in use. Beautiful day here today. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. About 12 degrees out. No wind. Hear the waves crashing on the beach. Just playing around with this lovely tool. Finished product. Turned out real nice. I had a little bit of ice that froze in a bucket, so I'm just going to use that as a test. I haul all my water from other places, including the local river. When I go to work, I get water. So I didn't have any large blocks to freeze to show you exactly how it would work. Maybe in the future we can find some down on the beach. But picture it. You got a 2 foot by 2 foot by 3 foot chunk of ice in your ice house that you worked your butt off to get there over the winter. It's now June, and you got to chisel off a chunk of that to bring into the house to put inside your ice box. That's where this axe would have came in. And it was designed for ice. So it chisels. It's actually, once you start using it, you can get the exact size piece you want. These were a little more expensive than regular axes, so not everyone had one. They would just use their wood chopping axe, which would work as well. But you just don't find a lot of these out there. If you are interested in one, they do come up on eBay. They sell fairly high for what they are. And they don't really work good for anything else. They don't work good as a splitter. They don't work good to chop trees down. They are made for ice. They do make great display pieces. Find an old ice tong or ice scraper, some old ice picks. You can make a very nice display with these. I just love using any type of axe and hand tool. Turned out great. It was a fun hang. Thanks for watching. Take her easy.